In the previous video I covered Law 2, which covered turning your enemies into your friends. Now Law 3, conceal your intentions. Judgment. Keep people off balance and in the dark by never revealing the purpose behind your actions. If they have no clue what you are up to, they cannot prepare a defense. Guide them far enough down the wrong path, envelop them in enough smoke, and by the time they realize your intentions, it will be too late. Part 1. Use decoyed objects of desire and red herrings to throw people off the scent. If at any point in the deception you practice, people have the slightest suspicion as to your intentions, all is lost. Do not give them the chance to sense what you are up to. Throw them off the scent by dragging red herrings across the path. Use false sincerity, send ambiguous signals, set up misleading objects of desire. Unable to distinguish the genuine from the false, they cannot pick out your real goal. Transgression of the law. So in 17th century France, this story focuses on Greene de Leclos and Marcus de Savagne. Greene was, well, firstly let me just say, I don't know if I'm pronouncing any of the names right. You know, they come from very European countries and Asian countries, and they're very classical, old names. Now, excuse me if I'm not pronouncing any of them right, just try and hear the story. Okay, so Greene was the most infamous courtesan of the 17th century. So she was an expert in love, relationships. She was this 60-year-old woman who was instructing Marcus, this young man who was having trouble seducing this young countess. He was handsome, he was young, but he was hopeless in the art of romance and seduction. So eventually, Greene got fed up. She's like, okay, I'm gonna help you. So she told him to start over, and the first thing she instructed him to do was approach the countess with some distance, an air of nonchalance, so the next time they were together, it would only come off as friends instead of a potential lover. And this was to throw off her scent, to confuse her and make a question, oh, maybe he's only interested in a friendship. The next step, Greene planned to instill jealousy in this young countess. So at a major event, Marcus would show up with a group of multiple beautiful women by his side. So the countess would see Marcus, he would be surrounded by these beautiful women, but not only would this instill jealousy, he would come across as someone to be desired by others. Greene explained, and it's a really awesome story, because this transgression of this law, this story echoes throughout the entire history of man and woman. It applies even now. So Greene, and this is the thing I was talking about, Greene says that a woman who is interested in a man wants to see that other women are interested in him too. Not only does this give him value, it makes it all the more satisfying to snatch him up from their clutches. Their value is higher, and it feels better once you got it. People want things that they can't have, and that goes back to jealousy. The next step, Greene instructed Marcus to fail to show up at events where the countess expected him to see, and then he would appear at places she did not expect him to see, like a salon. Places he's never frequented before, but he knew the countess was attending. This created an air of mystery, and it made her unable to predict his moves. It would push her into a state of emotional confusion that is a prerequisite for successful seduction, as he wrote there in the book. And through Greene's spies, she heard the countess, respond more formidably to Marcus's quips. So she would laugh a little harder, listen more closely to his stories, and she was asking more questions about him. She was more intrigued and curious. So, it was only a matter of time now before she would fall under his spell. So a few days later, Marcus and the countess are at home by themselves, alone. But this time, Marcus decided to act on his own impulse instead of listening to Greene's previous instructions. He took the countess's hand and told her he was in love with her. The countess was confused, and as a reaction he didn't expect, she politely excused herself from the room, and for the rest of the evening, she avoided eye contact with him. She ignored him, didn't even say goodnight to him. The next few times he visited, he told her she was not at home. Then when they finally saw each other again, the two felt too awkward and uncomfortable, and the spell was broken. And there's got to be hundreds and thousands of stories of men and women with a very similar tale of seduction. Now, it comes back to concealing your intentions. The interpretation of this story is as follows. Now I'm going to go off on a little path of seduction and comment on and reread interpretation of seduction that I say here, because I think it's interesting to note past this law. Nina knew that men and women are very different, but when it comes to seduction, they feel the same. Deep down inside, they often sense when they are being seduced, but they give in because they enjoy the feeling of being led along. It's that feeling of being chased. Is it a pleasure to let go and to allow the other person to detour you into a strange country? Everything seduction, however, depends on suggestion. You cannot announce your intentions or reveal them directly in words. Instead, you must throw off your targets off the scent. To confuse them, scramble your signals, appear interested in other people, men or women, as a decoy. Then hint at being interested in them, and feign indifference, on and on. And now this is where the reality of today is people call that playing games, right? But done right, that's the key thing, done right, it can instill great seduction, and it can get you a man or a woman. Such patterns not only confuse, they excite. That's what it's about. It's being exciting the emotions and not knowing what's going to come next. To bring it back to the story, imagine this from her perspective. After a few of Marcus's moves instructed by Nina, the Countess would have sensed that he was playing some type of game, but this made her curious, made her excited. She'd know where she was going, but she was intrigued to keep going along. The emotions of jealousy and confusion can be often much better than boredom and security in any relationship. Better in the fact it's more exciting. But the moment Marcus uttered the word love, changed everything. It was no longer a game with moves of seduction. It was just an artless show of passion, and his intention was revealed. It put everything he was doing in a new light, and suddenly a once charming, handsome, attractive man seemed ugly and conniving. Naturally, she felt embarrassed and used. And her door closed, her bridge burned, that would never be rebuilt again. Observance of the law. So in 1850, there was a young deputy in the Prussian parliament called Otto von Bismarck. Germany was divided in a war with Austria. Now, Bismarck's true intentions, was he was loyal and passionate supporter of Prussia's power and might, and he dreamed of German unification and going to war against Austria to destroy the country. But when Bismarck gave his speech to Parliament, he went to talk about the madness of war and basically condemned it, going against everything he stood for. And Bismarck was known as an advocate for war and going against Austria. So this confused everybody, confused the deputies, and it changed their votes. Eventually the war was averted. And the king, who was an advocate for peace as well, was grateful for this. And with that, he gave him a promotion and made him cabinet minister. A few years later, he became Prussian premier. And with that power, he used it to go against Austria and destroy that former empire, creating the German state, with Prussia at its head. So Bismarck knew that the king and his conservative minister wanted peace, but Bismarck wanted power and he wanted war. But he knew to bide his time and throw people off the scent through supporting the cause that he deep in his heart detested. He's cited as one of the, a master strategist and one of the cleverest statesmen who has ever lived. No one knew what he was up to. No one knew his real intentions. You see, if he went about it differently, and he played up the king asking to be made minister in exchange for supporting peace, he would not have succeeded. The king would have, distrusted his ambition and doubted his sincerity, just wanting to get ahead by putting his morals aside. But by concealing his intentions and deceiving everybody, he attained the power that he wanted. Such is the power of hiding your intentions. Keys to power. Keys to power focuses on the now and the reality. So, people love talking about themselves. It's natural to want to talk about your feelings and plans for the future. It gets people excited. It takes effort. It takes great effort to control your tongue and monitor what you reveal. A lot of people believe that being honest and open, you win people's hearts and show your good nature. But being so freely open, you make yourself predictable and familiar. And someone who is predictable and you can know what they're doing next, it's almost impossible to fear them. It makes it harder to respect them. And a power doesn't come easily to someone who cannot inspire such emotion. A human's instinct is always to trust appearances. We can't walk around doubting everything we see in reality. Robert says simply dangle an object you seem to desire, a goal you seem to aim for in front of people's eyes, and it will take the appearance for reality. Once their eyes focus on the decoy, it will fail to notice what you are really up to. In seduction, set up conflicting signals such as desire and indifference, and not only will you throw them off the scent, you inflame their desire to possess you. A tactic that is often effective in setting up a red herring is to appear to support an idea or cause that is actually contrary to your own sentiments. Robert notes that you don't have to hide your intentions by closing up. The risk appearing secretive and suspicious, but talking endlessly about your desires and goals, but just not your real ones. You appear friendly, open, trusting in that manner. You conceal your intentions, and you send your enemies and rivals on a confusing path. And one thing Robert doesn't talk about, which I have thought of, is concealing your intentions makes your story all the much better. It makes your legend all the much better. If people don't expect what you're going to do next, then when you're successful, they're all the more surprised. Your reputation is all the more better because you're known as someone who was unpredictably successful. You don't know what they're going to do next, and you can't wait for whatever's coming. It's like an artist creating a piece of music without any lead up, without any promotion. They just drop it. They've concealed their intentions, and they've just let the world have it. Beyonce did that, and it was a huge success. Part 2. Use smoke screens to disguise your actions. Deception is always the best strategy, but the best deceptions require a screen of smoke to distract people's attention from your real purpose. The bland exterior, like the unreadable poker face, is often the perfect smoke screen, hiding your intentions behind the comfortable and familiar. If you lead the sucker down a familiar path, he won't catch on when you lead him into a trap.